right, here we go. Mr. DJ Shadow in the house. Very nice to have you here on Ibiza. Welcome.
Thank you.
I've read on your Twitter that it's actually the first time that you're here.
Yep.
How does it feel, basically, to be in Ibiza? Because I read that you said you want to do something else than the usual same old club thing, sort of that Ibiza is known for. What is your plan for here?
Well, I mean, I'm just going to do what I do and do as much of what I would normally present to an audience as I can. I mean, you know, we're in a much smaller space than we would normally be in, but I don't want that to, you know, disrupt what I'm trying to convey musically and visually. So we're going to present as much of it as we can.
And then how difficult or how easy is it for you to maintain that sort of love for music that you always basically stood for and still stand for when you're now on a big major production world tour like you are at the moment? Is it really difficult, or is that more easy than probably the regular folks out there might think?
I mean, fortunately, the music that I'm playing, I love. I mean, it's music I was working on all from November to May, and also, you know, a lot of older songs of mine as well. But I mean, I anytime I DJ, whether I'm playing my stuff or someone else's stuff, it's all stuff I love. I mean, fortunately, I've never had to be a DJ with a residency and really struggle week after week to find enough new material to play and have to be really competitive with my peers. And so I've been able to just plug into DJing when it suited me, and I think that's a really good way to maintain a love for what you're doing. I've, you know, balanced studio work with the road, and I haven't toured for, I haven't done my own solo tour for 3 years. So I don't try and go to the well that often. I like to let it fill up again and let my enjoyment of it fill up again, so that I'm not kind of getting really road weary and jaded, and you know.
And you're living in San Francisco. How is it? How do you get in touch with new music? Do people send you stuff, or you still dig in the crates, or what? How is it that you get in touch with new sound?
In every possible way. I mean, people throw their CDs on stage.
They do?
Yeah, and I take them all home, and I don't usually remember where they came from by the time I get home. They're usually just in a pile, but I'll pop them in, drive around, and if I like something, there's every possibility that eventually it'll make it into a mix. So that's one way. Of course, I'd still go to record stores and buy new music on CD and vinyl, and I get sent a lot of downloads. So I definitely am always, the main thing I'm always looking for is just for someone to do work that makes me just go, wow, that's, you know, I'm really learning something from this person, and they have a whole vocabulary I don't know, and you know, how are they making this music? And that's really what I'm looking for, and I seek it from all genres, you know, whether it's rock or electronic or hip hop, or you know, any of the micro genres that exist within those main genres. And so I feel fortunate in the sense that I'm not really pinned down into, you know, I'm not known as, oh, this is his sound or that sound, or, you know, he's the you know, hip hop guy necessarily. I mean, I grew up on hip hop, but, you know, I'm not known as like, oh, he's the drum and bass guy or any one thing. It's like I can dip in and out and have my own appreciation and respect for those individual art forms without hopefully, you know, betraying them by trying to be something I'm not.
But isn't it that also when you reach a certain stage of creative freedom in a way that I thought you, I don't know, at least for me as an outsider, you always seem to have that sort of creative freedom to do whatever you want, and you were never really pinpointed down to genres. Very funny, this morning I pre-recorded my radio show that I'm doing over on the island of Formentera.
Okay.
And I was thinking of sort of like an announcement, so I picked Influx because I didn't hear it that for like, I don't know, 5 years or so, so I thought, okay, I just burned that down on CD, play it. Then I was listening to it under the headphone, and basically it's a like probably all of your tunes are, it's like a genre bending thing, right? You put it on now and it still sounds like as if it was produced yesterday, right?
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I learned early on from the people who were giving me early feedback was don't imitate anybody else. Don't try and be, at that time, I mean, this is going back 20 years, but at that time it was like, don't try and be like Premier, or don't try and be like, Pete Rock, or don't try and be like Large Professor, just, or any other DJ, or producer, just follow your own vision. Because, for me it was, well, I can't do what they do. They're geniuses at what they do, and I have to find my own niche. And as we both know, and as I think anybody watching or listening to this knows, so much of music that's made is just to try and contribute to, it's like, well, sounds almost exactly like this hit, or, this sounds exactly very close to this other hit, and it gives those weekly DJs and nightly DJs something else to play that they know is going to work, and that's totally legitimate. But I think if you're into music for other reasons, or for kind of maybe a deeper, if you're seeking something a little bit deeper, I think that it's only 1 out of 8 or 9 or 10 songs that come along, that maybe even less, that really speak to you or is trying to do something different. And that's not to say that any one type of approach is better than another. It's just that for me, it takes quite a bit of time and energy to distill what I consider to be just kind of here today and gone tomorrow stuff. And over the years, a lot of really good stuff gets lost in the shuffle. And I enjoy going back and listening to things for the second, third, or fourth time years down the road, and kind of going, this didn't get a fair shake, or this was totally overlooked or misunderstood when it came out. And it's interesting to me to see how my own opinions change.
So, because I was talking to Peter Kruder the other day, also in front of the camera, and he was basically saying that at some point last year he became really aware of how consumed he got with, like, when he gets a new record, just to skip all the tracks and see what he can play, other than now he rediscovered to sit down in that deck chair, put on the needle to the record and just listen to the whole album, like we were all used to when we were kids, right? There's a big difference in between just consuming music for DJing or just really getting deep with the record, right?
Yeah, and of course it depends on the type of music too, because if it's a 12-minute house tune with very little movement to it, you can get a pretty quick impression by dropping the needle. And some would say the same with hip-hop or my records as well. But yeah, I think that it's funny. I remember Giles Peterson came up in conversation earlier because somebody was talking about him coming out here, and I remember early on with my first Moax 12-inch, and he was like, hindsight, that song is really deceptive because it seems as though it's just kind of one note, but then you play it and there's a real progression to it. I remember really appreciating him saying that, because that's the whole thing I was trying to convey, and that's the whole I just appreciated the fact that he didn't just drop the needle on it, and that he gave it a listen all the way through. So yeah, I mean, I try and do the same wherever possible.
So now that you mentioned Mowax and I mentioned Influx earlier on, tonight you're going to play with George from Nightmares on Wax. It's his party night also. Did you guys ever cross paths ever since the Mowax days then?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I mean, I vividly remember one particular day being with James Lavelle at his house, and I had a bunch of vinyl with me. I was unpacking from a suitcase because I was out there in England to DJ with him, and he, had all his records set up next to his turntables, and we just started talking about influences, and he cited, Nightmares on Wax as a major influence, and one of his top 3 influences, and played it for me, and I was kind of like, yeah, You know, that's, you know, it's at that time it was like, okay, there's people who grew up on hip hop, but by the early '90s were seeking something beyond what hip hop was providing. And even though I chose to stick with rap and hip hop through the years, I know other people have, you know, wavered or gone in other directions. And if you grew up on hip hop, particularly in the '80s, you can always hear those influences, whether it's Ronnie Size or, you know, drum and bass guys or dubstep guys or whoever. You can always tell the people that listened to hip hop growing up because there's a certain attitude to it. And so that was, you know, my first impression of Nightmares on Wax. And then Ease recently reminded me that he actually booked DJ Crush and I in Leeds at the Cockpit in '94, which would have been one of my first, if not the first, extensive tour of England that I had done. We did a few dates in '93, and then I did 2 or 3 tours in '94, and I don't remember which one that was, but I do remember that tour, and I remember that gig, little pieces. He actually said he has a cassette of it. Wow. Which I'd love to, he said it's somewhere. I'd love to hear it because I'll probably cringe, but, you know, it's fun to remind yourself, like, wow, you know, I wonder why I played that, or I wonder, you know, where my head was at, or that was pretty cool, or that sucked, or whatever. You know.
And all romanticism aside, in a way, it's a little bit like circles closing in, right? Because you guys haven't played together for ages now. Because the funny thing is, like you said, you played in '93, '94. That's when George booked you. In the end, we must not forget that's like 16 years ago. Absolutely. And isn't it amazing that with this kind of music, we're all still around. You guys are all still around. You're doing well. You're doing that kind of stuff. You're doing what you want, and now you keep coming back to Ibiza to play this party. It's amazing, no?
Yeah, and you know, I felt the same way when I hooked up with James Lavelle recently because I hadn't seen him in a few years, and I've just been really, I'm very respectful of the way that he's kept Uncle going, you know, and not just kept it going, but kept it changing and evolving, and you know, I think we're both in a different place now, and again, it's that full circle feeling. And so yeah, I mean, I think it's entirely appropriate that it's George who's bringing me out here for the first time, and it's also nice to see and get an education about Ibiza, because you know, you really only get the whole like sort of sleazy side of clubbing. That's the impression you get when you think of Ibiza, unfortunately. And now that I'm here, I see that it's not all about that. So it's cool to be here, and I hope to be, you know, I'd like to come back. So hopefully it goes well tonight, and I'm just happy to be here.
Cool. As a last thing, then I let you go eat.
Yeah.
Go have a good Aura dinner. Is there anything that you always wanted to get rid in front of the camera? Anything you always wanted to say? Here goes your chance.
No. I don't like being on camera. I don't like, you know, it's just, it's not why I do what I do.
Of course.
But, I mean, it's a necessary part of it, and you can't be too precious about it. But, nope, I'm like Terminator X. I like to speak with my hands. You know, I appreciate your time.
Very wise words. Thank you very much. And have a good time in Ibiza.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.